In today's video, I'll be showing you how to level up your painting by applying techniques which will enhance the effects of your Space Marines, making them look awesome. Let's get into it. This is Miniature Mentor. And this is how to paint your next Space Marine. Over the next 60 seconds, I'll be explaining how this video is going to help you. Now, due to the success of the Space Marine 2 video game, many new hobbyists have emerged, and this is great news. A ton of you have therefore started painting your first models, which are undoubtedly Space Marines. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to teach you some really helpful skills to keep improving on both your existing and your future hobby. And I like to follow something which I've dubbed the 3 rules of power. The first is to have a clean model to work with. This is artistry, so our canvas has to be spotless. Get rid of those flash and mould lines using the correct tools and fine sandpaper. And actually, when I shot this, I missed one of his legs, as you can see here, so make sure you double check everything before priming. Second rule is to ensure that you thin your paints using the correct amount of water depending on the technique. This will keep those details and allow you to paint over any mistakes that you might make. And lastly, to ensure that you practice painting regularly and correctly. If you want to improve at anything in life, you need consistency in your practice, so set aside time for yourself to keep that momentum going. To begin, I've sprayed this Combi Lieutenant in Lead Belcher undercoat from Games Workshop. I've blue tacked the head because I want to paint this separately from the model in order to get to all the details. This will be a different undercoat colour too, we'll likely use Wraithbone for this one. I'm going to use this Death Shroud Clear Air paint and cover the whole model in it straight from the pot. This will give my armour darker recesses and add a glossy finish to the metal colour that I've chosen. Ensure that this is fully dry before you do the next step so that the colours don't run. To finish the armour, we're going to give it a polish using plate armour, going in a circular motion with a round dry brush. This is the same technique used in our last Marine video, so definitely go and check it out. We need to separate the armour from the rest of the model, so I'm going to paint over all of the leather and organic material in several thin coats using flat brown. If you make a mistake, just use Lead Belcher paint from the pot, thinned down. Using the classic and favourite Agrax Earthshade, straight from the pot, we're going to paint all of the leather pouches and belts. This darkens the leather and adds depth. Trying out a reimagined classic, we use snakebite leather and use the side of the brush, hitting those sharper edges to give a little more detail. If you're enjoying this tutorial, please don't forget to hit the like button, sub and ring that bell to keep updated with all new videos I release. Thanks! We're going to use the feathering technique to build a base of chitin growth for our Lieutenant's trophy arm. To do this, we start with Ushabti bone and paint growth lines moving away from the miniature. Add in some horizontals too for a finishing point. Move up to Wraithbone and apply a few lines of these as a highlight. To colour the chitin, we're going to use Wazdaka Red with Fleshter's Red contrast in a 50-50 mix. Thin it down a little with contrast medium and a touch of water and apply this in 2 coats. Now, because of the bone layer we've just built, it'll add much more depth than if we were just to paint the red on the flat brown base coat from earlier. Using Squig Orange, we re-highlight the section in a chunky highlight method. This is where your lines are a bit thicker, so you haven't got to worry so much. Lastly, with Ungor Flesh, paint thin highlights to maximise the growth look on this part of the model. One of the things I forgot to do was blue tack my model to a plastic shot glass. The reason I do this is because it allows me to hold the model much better and not get my hands all over it, even if I'm wearing gloves. We need to break up the metal further by applying Black Legion contrast paint into the soft under armour. I use this rather than a standard acrylic black paint because it's faster. It essentially goes straight into the indent. I then apply another layer to remove the metallic underlayer. Using a different black contrast, Black Templar, we begin painting the Combi Bolter rifle casing. Now, you don't have to use a different black, but I prefer this as it separates it from the material that was just shown. Using Lead Belcher, we lightly stipple and or dry brush the casing to give it a little weathering. To paint the flamer, we want to give it a singed look. I'm going to use a wet blend here. This is where you mix the paint whilst it's on the model. We start with the Magus purple and then use the Talassar blue after this as it's the stronger colour. Play about with it until you get the blended intensity that you wish. For the Prometheum, that's the flamer fuel canister, I want to keep it slightly metallic. So I'm going to combine Mournfang Brown along with Wildwood at 50-50 to create that finish. I like to paint this with 2 coats. For the many grenades on this Tyranid Hunter, we're going to use Nuln Oil on the crack grenade, a Catachan Green base coat for the frag, and Corvus Black with an Evil Sun's red strip for the smokes. We feather layer the frag with Elysian Green to give it a pop. And do the same with Troll Slayer Orange for the red strip on the smokes. For the paired combat blades, we water down Corvus Black about 5:1 to represent a carbonised finish. Wait for it to dry before applying a further coat. Don't forget to do both sides of the knife either. Next we add a little Vallejo model black to the mix and apply a further coat for depth. Using Runefang steel, edge highlight the edges of the knife. To paint the trinkets, use 2 layers of Runelord brass. Then apply Wildwood as a shade for depth. As an extra, use Retributor armour for those pouch buttons. We've got a Tyranid claw here, so I'm going to paint multiple layers of thinned Wraithbone to get it looking like this. Then paint the shell the same way as before. To give depth to the claw, use Skeleton Horde contrast paint. Give a final highlight of Wraithbone on the edge. To paint the cable, do multiple layers of Evil Sun's Scarlet and highlight by putting Troll Slayer into that mix. He has a Vox communicator on this arm, so we use Grass Green to paint the buttons. Using thinned AK White, we paint multiple layers onto the screen panel. Then, watering down some Livery Green, we apply multiple layers to make it look like it has a bright glow. For the chapter shoulder pad, we mix Blood Angel's red contrast with Evil Sun's and again apply multiple layers. Using Evil Sun's mixed with some Troll Slayer orange, I'm going to stipple using the end of a large brush to set up a brighter layer. I've teared up some sponge and gripped it in these tweezers to then add a Ceramite armour effect. This then goes straight in the Troll Slayer orange and we sponge it on. If you haven't already, feel free to join our free entry Discord channel. It's a friendly space where you can ask questions and chat about your hobby. To give a tidy finish, use Model Black for the shoulder rims by painting in horizontal lines. If you make a mistake, use Evil Sun's to correct the red. You will absolutely get red paint in your power pack, so when you've finished, retrace the metal steps from earlier to make a correction. Now I'm going to show you how to apply decals. First, use a thin layer of watered down hard coat to give the decal something to purchase to. Then, adding water to the decal repeatedly on some kitchen towel, wait for it to soften. Using micro set, we'll paint this on the glossed pad first to let the decal soften as it hits the pad. After around 5 minutes of drying, we apply micro sol over the decal. We're going to do this 4 times with 5-minute intervals of drying time. Between intervals, you can repeat the process for other decals you might like to apply on the model, as you can see on the knee and power pack here. The final step is to paint on this ultra matte varnish from AK. Now this should be ultra matte, but it had a satin finish for my model instead, as I didn't apply enough coats. However, that's fine with me, as I think it really suits the model. We need to paint this alien ichor, so I'm going to chuck some white on this. Then, like the screen from earlier, we're going to use that livery green and brighten it up. Let's add some Flashkits yellow into the mix to really give it that alien looking oozy glow. Add some hard coat for a slimy finish. Before working on the head, let's not forget to blacken where it will go. I've pin drilled a hole through the neck and blue tacked this to a cocktail stick. From here, we undercoat it in Wraithbone. We use our shoulder pad mix and paint the whole head in this. This is because it's a good underlayer for the flesh colour, as well as the armour. Where the armour is located, we apply another layer for a more substantial red. I'm going to apply the same method on the head as before, like I did with the shoulder and the knee. Here's a guide for quick and easy flesh. Use Night Quester flesh and paint in big lines using a slightly larger brush. Remember to thin down your paint. We then use Lumion medium, which is what paint is made of, for flow, plus Rhinox hide. Add water at 5:1. This makes a dark flesh wash. We then reapply Night Quester flesh whilst avoiding any recesses or scars. I mix Kislev with Night Quester for a simple highlight and dot the brow, including other raised areas. For easy eyes, apply thinned Rhinox hide for brooding shadow in those eye indents. We paint the service studs in a metallic colour of our choice. Finally, we paint black over all the Under Armour areas, including the pipes. Grab some Gorilla Super Glue and apply the head to the body. Here's what our model looks like now. You'll see I've painted the squished Nid underfoot using the same techniques from earlier. For easy but wicked basing effects, we use AK Muddy Ground and apply liberally over the base. Next we add Dark Earth pigment from Ammo by MIG to give a realistic ground effect. If this looks too dusty and a bit weird, don't worry, we're going to spray some Humbrol matte varnish to the base, which will reduce the powdered look and bind the pigment to the model. Our final step is to paint the base rims with that model black from earlier. You want at least 3 coats. There we have it, our Scarlet Templar Combi Lieutenant is ready for war. If you have any questions, thoughts or comments, please drop them in the usual space in the comment box below. And as before, if you did enjoy the content, please ensure to like, subscribe and hit that bell to not miss out on our videos which are released regularly. Until next time guys, keep on hobbying.